Okay, Canaries. This episode is one that's going to feel a little different. It's not heavier, but it is deeper. Because the last episode, we talked about how being around the wrong people can kind of distort how you feel and how you see yourself. But this one is about what happens when you don't fully understand yourself. And I want to start here. I don't think we talk enough about the fact that we all have this dark side. Right? We have this darker side. Not in a traumatic, scary way, but in like a really human way. The part of you that gets jealous, the part of you that gets reactive, the part of you that could say the thing that would absolutely ruin someone's day. Like, let's be honest, we all have that one sentence locked and loaded. The one where you're like, I could end this conversation right now. This one zinger. And the growth is going, but I'm not going to do that. There's this idea from Carl Jung that I've really connected with, and it's called the shadow. And it's basically all the parts of you that you don't fully acknowledge. The insecure parts, the reactive parts, the protective parts, the parts of you that learn to hide because at some point they weren't safe to show. And the problem is, if you don't know your shadow, you can become it. Not intentionally, but quietly. In the way you react, in the way you shut down, in the way you project things to other people that actually belong to you. And I want something noted, because I want to be really honest about this here, because it's really easy to talk about this in theory, but it's much harder to admit when you've actually been the one who caused the damage. I've had moments where I was triggered and I didn't handle it well, like at all. I was dating someone at the time who had a tendency to be a bully, and we'll talk more about that kind of dynamic in another episode. But for this one, just know there was already a sensitivity there for me in this specific story. So one weekend we are installing flooring at my mother's house. If she's listening, I'm sure she remembers this. And it was kind of a Christmas gift to her. And we didn't have a lot of extra material, so accuracy mattered. And I knew how to do it. I know how to install floors, right? But instead of standing in that, I tried to keep the peace and I let him lead, which looking back was a mistake. Because what followed was 2 days of a lot of tension. And of course, I knew that I could do better. And I was also being talked down to. And that turned into arguing. And then it turned into him taking shots at me, at my work, at what I stood for. And I know this was his ego, right? Because at the time, as a carpenter, I was making almost twice the wage he was making. And so there was a sensitivity there. But after 2 days of being spoken to like that, even with that understanding, something snapped in me. And here's the thing about me. I don't yell when I fight. I tend to get really quiet. And that's not always better. It might even be scarier because quiet doesn't mean calm. Sometimes it means everything is building. And I remember being on the ground working almost in tears while he's still going, chirping at me, right? And I just hit this blackout point. And I stood up. I didn't say a word. And I walked to my room. And remember I said it was close to Christmas? I had already bought everyone's Christmas gifts, wrapped them ready, very thoughtful gifts because I love Christmas. So I'm done shopping by like October. So everything was prepped and I grabbed all of his gifts and I walked outside because if you are from the country, you know everybody's got a burn pit. We had a burn pit. I walked outside to the burn pit. My mom had a fire going and without saying a single word, I dropped every single one of his gifts into the fire. And just watch them go up in flames, one right after another. And he's screaming at me from the door, burn it all down, you psycho, words I probably shouldn't say here. Then my mom comes running out barefoot, bless her soul, screaming me by my middle name, Brianna Elizabeth. And I just turned around silently and calmly and walked back inside and I never said a word. And fast forward to Christmas morning, his gifts were still there because my mom had ripped them the best she could out of the fire. But they were half burned. They smelled like smoke. The edges of his gifts were charred. And here's the part I didn't understand back then. Even though I felt justified, I was still operating inside his dynamic, right? I let his chaos set the tone for the situation. And then I matched it. Not just matched, I upped it, setting things on fire. Just in my own way. And by reacting like that, by going big, by going dramatic, I gave him the opportunity to point at me and say, see, you're the problem. And the hard truth to swallow there is my reaction made that believable. Not because I was the problem, but because I stepped out of myself and into something that wasn't grounded in who I actually am. It didn't align with my values. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to move through life reacting to other people's behavior and letting that dictate who I become in the moment. What is it? True strength is not allowing the outside to affect your inside. It's like that. Because that's how you lose yourself. Not all at once, but in these little moments where you abandon your own way of being just to respond to someone else's. And that's the lesson I had to learn. It's not just about whether you're right. It's about whether you're still you in the way you respond. And in that moment, I definitely wasn't. I don't need to win moments like this. I need to recognize when they're not mine to step into. His insecurity about my career being quote unquote better than his was not mine to worry about. And this might sound intense, but I actually think there's a lot of value in knowing that you could be a monster. Not in a scary way, but in an honest way. Understanding your strength, your bite, your ability to hurt someone, if you really wanted to. Because pretending like we don't have those abilities doesn't make anyone safer. It's worse. It makes you unaware. And it makes you unaware is dangerous to you, to your environment, and to anyone in your proximity. There's something really powerful about being able to say, I know exactly what I'm capable of, and I'm choosing not to use it like that. And that's a different kind of strength. Like, I know my body, my mind is a full artillery of weaponry because I've seen enough and to choose not to use it. And this is going to sound like a little bit of a tangent on this part, but stay with me. I read my very first smut novel this week, which is wild because I am a big time reader. So the fact that it took me this long is almost embarrassing. I just didn't think smut didn't have any interest to me, right? But I took a shot in the dark at one. And as I'm reading it, I realized something. One of the sexiest things about those male and female characters is their ability to be complete monsters. But their character controls it. And of course, the love interest becomes the monster's Achilles heel, right? The book I'm reading right now is A Court of Thorns, which I'm sure many of you have heard. And I'm on the second book. So my fellow book girls that know what I'm talking about, no spoilers in the emails, I'm serious. So what I'm getting at is the concept is the same. If we parallel it to what Jung talks about, knowing how to carry the darker pieces of yourself, because if you don't, you're going to bleed on people. You're going to create wounds where you never intended to do harm, because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness, catching yourself faster, owning your reactions sooner, choosing differently even when it's uncomfortable. All right, Canaries, you are not just your light, you are your shadow too. And the more you understand both, the safer you become to yourself and to the people you love. We're not doctors, therapists, professionals, just a community sharing real life experiences. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And if you've ever had a moment where you realized, yeah, that reaction was mine, here's my crazy girl moment, send it to the HerCanary podcast at HerCanary.com. I should share one of the most consistent feedback that I've been receiving on these podcasts is that the episode length is too short, which is kind of a positive feedback. I really like it. And so I'm just dipping my toes in these topics, and based on your guys' feedback, I'll revisit them and then we'll go more in depth. So know that I am hearing you. I am hearing your responses, and this is another short clip of an episode, but the shadow work is something I'm very, very, very interested. Carl Jung's work, obviously, I mentioned him quite a bit. And so based on your guys' feedback, I will expand on any of these topics that I'm posting. Just know that I am hearing you, and these are starter episodes to see what you guys want to know more on. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, Canaries.